Hey everybody, I'm Dave. Welcome back to the Tiny Kitchen. Tonight I'm going to show you how to make a New Mexican staple, green chile stew. Hey, welcome back to the Tiny Kitchen. Once again, I'm Dave. Tonight we're going to make green chile stew. In New Mexico, which is where I am, it's a staple. As the weather starts to get colder and leaves begin to fall, we go back to those old staples that we grew up with. For me, it was a green chile stew. Tonight we're going to make my mom's recipe. I'm going to share it with you in the world. Some folks like to use ground beef, some like to use canned green chili, some like to use fresh. Everybody has their own taste for it. I'm going to share mine with you. So, you may want to pause the video. I've got the ingredients listed below. Let's get started. Alright, we're going to start by cutting some potatoes into big 1-inch chunks. Once you've got all your potatoes chopped, put them in a bowl. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to rinse them off, get rid of some of that starch. Then we're going to throw them in our cooking pot to start cooking. Alright, so we've got our potatoes rinsed. I put them inside of one of our cooking pots with the water level covering the potatoes. We're going to cook these for about 25 minutes, almost as if we were going to boil them for mashed potatoes. But I want them to cook down a little bit so they're not so tough or so crispy when I get them into the stew, because we want them to be kind of chewy a little bit, break down, The nice wholesome bite with the tortilla and the meat. It's going to be lovely. Come check them out. Alright, so we've got them in the pot. Flames going. Like I said, we're going to let these cook for about 25 minutes or so until they're tender. Then we're going to come back and start putting everything together in the big pot for the stew. While this is going on, we're going to take a quick step back and look at seasoning our beef for the stew. It's been about 25 minutes. The potatoes are done. For now, they're not completely cooked all the way. We're going to throw them into the stew once we get that going. But first, we're going to cook our meat, our beef. So I picked up some ground beef, just a pound. And I also have 2 pounds of the beef stew meat. This is just beef roast that was cut up by the butcher for me, which is pretty nice. I'm going to throw them into hot pans, season them with salt and pepper. We'll get them going. So let me show you how we do that. Alright, so I have 2 pans going. They've both been brought up to temperature, a medium-high flame. Then I dropped them down to medium. I have the cast iron skillet. Inside of this, we're going to take our pound of ground beef. It's just the old 80-20 mix. And in the larger cooking pot, which we're going to use to actually make our stew, I've got our 2 pounds of stew meat. So we're just going to brown these and season them with salt and pepper. The ground beef we're going to cook all the way through. We're going to give it a good poke with the old stirring spoon. And then we're going to do the same with the stew meat. Alright, so we're cooking our beef. We have the ground beef. We're going to cook this all the way through because, well, it's a pain in the butt. We're going to season it with some salt and pepper. And right next to it, once again, in the big cooking pot, we have the stew meat. This we're just going to brown up a little bit because it will finish cooking inside of the stew itself. But the ground beef we're going to cook all the way through. Some folks, with most green chile stews here in New Mexico, they prefer to just use either the ground beef by itself or the stew meat. I want to do both. We're going to mix it up and go a little crazy. So we're going to get a good little char on the outside of the stew meat, and we're going to cook the ground beef all the way through once again. We're going to hit them with the old salt and pepper. This is just coarsely ground sea salt. I love the way the stuff tastes. Gives everything a nice flavor. And here we have the good old fresh cracked peppercorns. I picked these salt and pepper mills up at the old Wally. A couple dollars a piece. If you want to get your own little mills, I'll put a link in the description below. Once we season them, give them another little stir. We'll let these little guys cook all the way through, and then we'll come back once they're cooked all the way through. Alright, so we're going to drain out these potatoes. Get rid of some of the starchy potato water. It's about 4 cups. We're going to put these back in the pot until we're ready to put them into the stew. Alright, so we got to drain out this beef just to make sure that we don't have any extra fat in there, because we don't want that in the stew. So we're going to put our drain out the ground beef. And since I use that cast iron skillet, wearing a mitten, safety first. Put that into our bowl. Now we're going to drain the cube steak. Sorry, the stew meat. Look at all that liquid that came out of there. We're not going to clean out the bottom of the pan because this is what's going to be used for our stew. So now that we have this out, give it a good shake. Let all that meat juice fall down. Meat juice. Alright, now let's put it together. Alright, so we're going to put our stew meat back in the pan. We're also going to throw in our 1 cup of onion. Going to give it a good poke with a wooden spoon. Alright, we're going to let that do its thing for a minute or two. Since we just threw the onion in there again, I bought this crazy Hawaiian sea salt. I'm going to go ahead and hit it with this. Might help if I take the lid off. Season it real fast. A little salt, a little pepper. We're going to just sweat that onion a little bit with the beef. And then we're going to add in the ground beef. And, of course, our potatoes. Now your pot's going to look pretty full, and that's okay. We've got a few more things to add. We're going to add our 2 cans of diced tomatoes. My mother likes to use the whole stewed tomatoes, peeled and all that. I don't like those. I don't like chewing on the big slimy thing. I like these diced tomatoes better. And we're also going to use some kidney beans. Now I know that with most New Mexican cooking, we use the pinto bean, but if these are going to be left in the stew, possibly maybe even eaten over a couple of days, I like these because they have a nice crunch to them and they hold their shape and flavor real well. So, as you can see, I can barely mix this around. Now we're going to start adding in the water. Now remember at the start of this I said different people make this differently. And this is the way my mom always did it. Now I fill it with water so that everything's covered. Some people add in beef base, add in bouillon. I may throw in a few beef bouillon cubes down the road if it doesn't look right. We're going to let this all do its business. Now since this is green chili stew, you may be asking yourself, gee Dave, where's the green chili? I'm not going to leave out the most important part. What we have here, over here, is New Mexico Hatch Green Chile. This has been sitting in my freezer for a minute or so. I'm going to throw it all in. Maybe just most of it. And with the green chili in here, we're just going to give it a good stir. Try to get everything all mixed around. What was I thinking? I should have got a bigger bowl. Alright. So I'm going to let this come to a boil. Then I'm going to turn it down and let it simmer for a little while. And after it simmers, depending on how you like your stew, it can be anywhere from an hour to 2 hours. Some folks let it sit all day long. I personally believe it tastes better the next day, so I'm going to cook it tonight for a little while. Maybe 45 minutes, an hour. Just let it simmer nice, low and slow. And then we'll throw it in the fridge overnight. Take some to work tomorrow, share it with my friends. And we'll come back to it in about an hour or so. Slowly coming to a boil. Alright, now that it's starting to boil, we're going to go ahead and cap it. Drop that temperature down to low. Oh, looks like we have a tomato trying to break free. And we're going to let this cook for about 45 minutes, maybe longer. We'll check on it a little bit. Alright, it's been a couple of hours. Let's go ahead and take the top off. Oh, this smells fantastic. Everything's looking good. Looks like it's about time to serve this. So let me get a bowl. We'll check it out. Alright, there we have it. New Mexican green chile stew, the way my mom used to do it. A little bit of cheese on top, always served best with a fresh tortilla, homemade, here from Dave's Tiny Kitchen. Hit like and subscribe, new content up every week, and next time we'll do something just as tasty to help get you through this cold weather. As always, thanks for playing with me in my tiny kitchen.